to YouTube. We're about to start recording.
We are live. Happy Friday, everyone. And welcome to, once again, another installment of David Green Real Estate, a monumental week for David Green's YouTube channel. First of all, we got a really cool tag. Basically, if you go to @DavidGreen24, that's green with an E, that'll take you right to David's YouTube channel. So kind of cool. We got this shortcut, but even cooler than that. And thank you to those who are subscribed to the channel. If you're not, we would highly suggest that you do. We'd ask that you do that. The David Green Real Estate YouTube channel just hit 10,000 subscribers. So super cool and super exciting. My name is Kyle Ranke, by the way. I am the Chief Operating Officer of the David Green team and the David Green Mastermind. And your host here tonight to kind of hang out and chat with David, talk about the real estate market. Our topic tonight is, are home prices expected to drop? So really excited to jump into that. But before we do, I just want to say hello and welcome to the man himself, my hoodie brother, Mr. David Green. I don't think I've ever seen you in a hoodie before, have I? Maybe it's been a while.
Yeah, you've seen me most of my life in hoodies.
So now I see you in tank tops, it feels like.
Yeah, that's the case most of the time. I don't know about these hoodies. I like that the one brokerage thing is on there, but the hood itself is just super, super small. It's kind of like choking me. So I don't wear this one too often.
I think it looks good on you, man. It looks good.
Thank you for that.
So what's new in your world? We had a really good webinar last night, a really good turnout.
Yeah, that was a long day yesterday. I'm pretty tired from it. The webinar was really good. We talked about building a financial fortress. We got into tactical ways you can do it, like what you can buy, how to buy, where to buy. But more than just that, I think too many people in the real estate community only look at real estate. They don't see real estate as a piece of a bigger puzzle, right? And most things in life you want to be good at, you can't just focus on one thing. Like, for instance, if you want to have a better relationship, you can't just only focus on your relationship. Part of having a better relationship is being in better shape, having other interests, having other hobbies, having your spouse respect you and be attracted to you. So like, if you want to have a better relationship, sometimes you got to work on things outside of it to get it. And real estate's the same way. You want to be able to buy more real estate. Sometimes you need to make more money at your job. Sometimes you need to build more skills or build confidence in other areas that will translate over to real estate. Sometimes you need to learn how to save the money you've already made and have a plan for it. So just like you got to be able to track your income from real estate, we talked a lot about tracking the money that you're making and making sure that you're not overspending, a lot of stuff like that. So we hear Nadia here saying that the webinar was great. I'm glad to hear that.
Thank you, Nadia. Yeah, it was great. We had a really good turnout, really good stuff. Do us a favor, by the way, if you're watching this on YouTube, drop in the chat where you guys are from. Would love to see who is from where, because we're going to be talking a little bit about the state of the market, right? And I don't know, man. Like every time I go through my news feed, which I try to actually avoid because I feel like I just turn into doom scrolling where all I'm doing is looking at bad news. And after a while, I just get depressed by it.
I've never heard that phrase, doom scrolling. That's good.
Yeah. But like, I don't know. I get depressed by everything that I'm seeing, and everything is talking about a bubble, or a housing market crash. And like, I'm just kind of getting tired of the clickbait. And I think this is a really good opportunity for us to come on here tonight and talk a little bit about, okay, great. Is the housing market shifting? Is it changing? Yes. Is the economy shifting? Is the economy changing? Yes. But like you said, a lot of times we focus on the external, but we're not really focusing on the internal, which is ourselves, right? And like bettering ourselves and the things that we can control within our environment. And a lot of times that actually creates more opportunity than if all we do is focus on the outside. So, hey, that's cool. That's a new little webcam angle.
Figure out which one looks better. What do you think? Probably the other one.
Yeah, I kind of like the other one. There you go. I like that. So, yeah, with that, I mean, just to see who we have here tonight, we got Kat here from Northern California. Gerardo's from Fresno. Matias is from San Jose. We got, I cannot even pronounce this. You want to give it a shot, David?
Matias Infante?
No, right here, Kevin
Prouty.
Oh, it's on the screen there.
Waltonboro.
There you go. Very nice.
Waltonboro, New Hampshire.
Yep. Warwick, Rhode Island, Southeast Colorado. So we are representing. We even got people from New Zealand. Welcome, MM. We got people representing all parts of the world and throughout the United States. So super excited to dive into this topic tonight. Before we do that, I'm going to go ahead and throw on a little ticker here at the bottom. If you have a question or you just have a comment or you want to contribute to this conversation with David and myself about this week's topic of, hey, home prices are expected to drop. What are some things we should be aware of? What are some things we should be considering? Send a text message to the number below, right? So it has to be specific to tonight's topic. I get it that you got a deal in a certain area and you have a question about, should you take out a HELOC on your house? Should you not? Those are all great and valid questions, but we do want to try to stay on tonight's specific topic. So if you have a question, shoot us a text and we'll try to bring you on here live on camera with us to 833-777-0309. So that being said, let me go ahead and share my screen. I wanted to share with you, David.
Doom scrolling a little bit before we do that.
Oh, I would love
some
to.
context to this. Okay.
Yes.
Tell me about what your experience is like when you're scrolling through stuff and you're reading bad news.
So, first of all, if I'm in a really bad space, I will look at my news app the first thing in the morning, which is probably one of the worst things that you can do. And I swear, Google or whoever, wherever I'm getting my news from, they know the types of articles that are, number one, going to get clicks, but number two, are going to interest me the most. So I tend to see more housing and real estate related stuff, right? And economy related stuff. For me, it just puts me in a bad mood for the rest of the day. It evokes emotions of maybe fear, anxiety, maybe a slight tinge of panic. And then the interesting thing is, like 99% of the time, I actually go in and I read the article and I read the facts and I read the things that they actually laid out. I'm like, actually, this isn't as bad. Like,
where's the beef?
Yeah, it was just the title. Like, the title was the only scary thing. So that's my experience with it.
So think about this from like a biological perspective. And I don't mean an evolutionary biological perspective. I just mean how human beings are wired, biology. If you're in a village, you don't have news, you don't have a wall, you don't have a feed. You're in the village and somebody comes walking up and they say, hey, the water is like a really nice temperature today. You guys want to go down there and go swimming? That's like a form of news, something crossing your path.
Yep.
Then you have another villager that comes up and goes, oh my God, there's a huge tiger and he's coming this way. Which of those two things are you going to pay more attention to?
The second one, the tiger.
There you go. So that's what clickbait people have figured out. You will always pay more attention to bad news than to good news. Point number one. And you're supposed to, because bad news could kill you, whereas good news is just cool. The second piece, do you remember in, well, first off, let me ask this. News companies are companies. They're not nonprofits. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What's the goal of a company, Kyle?
To make money.
Good. And how do news companies make their money primarily?
They sell newspapers or subscriptions to their website or whatever.
And ads,
and
right?
Advertising. Yeah.
And advertisement, right?
Yeah.
In the advertisement world, you determine how much you're going to pay based on how many viewers you're getting. So they can sell their ads for more if more people are watching what they do, which means that they have to get you paying attention to them by clicking on their thing or subscribing or whatever you're doing. So they're always going to tell you about the tiger, even if the tiger is like 700 miles away.
Mm-hmm.
Or even what they heard someone else say that a tiger could be coming, right? Like maybe it's not even a tiger. Maybe it's a tiny little baby bobcat, but it's been exaggerated by the time it gets to you. But they're always going to give you bad news, right? So don't be upset or shocked when you see a lot of bad news in your feed. Now, imagine that every day you woke up and 6 to 7 times a day, you heard someone coming and screaming, a tiger's coming, a lion's coming. Lions are everywhere. There's a drought. There's a famine. Babies are dying. There's another tribe coming to kill us. Like, how do you think your emotional state would be in the day if this was all that you ever heard?
Man, it would get exhausting after a while. I'd always be heightened.
Always. Anxiety would be everywhere. You'd be afraid of everything. And you just get this feeling, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to hide from the tiger? Am I supposed to hide from the lion? Or am I supposed to prepare for war? It's exhausting. That's what happens when you just watch too much news. That's all that it is. Don't make it a bigger deal. But like, you're watching all this news, it's going to put you in a state of mind that's terrible. Now, to take that a step further, if you actually thought lions and tigers and bears were all coming, you probably wouldn't want to do anything but pay attention to that. Well, what if they're not? You just wasted your life worrying about stuff that never actually happened. Okay. And then the last point is, if we go back to where we were with like, say, COVID-19. There's always a new crisis, right? Remember when like Coney was walking around killing everybody in Africa and it was all that we were talking about? Like, in fact, I can't even remember all the different crises because there's always a new one that the news is throwing up. COVID was the last one. It's all we talked about because we thought tigers were everywhere. So, of course, we're just asking, where's the tiger? How many people have the tigers killed? What kind of people are the tigers killing? Am I going to get killed by a tiger? Like, that's all that we ever heard. And now we look back, we're like, oh, yeah, that actually wasn't as bad as it was made out to be. I was worried and I was anxious and it was all for nothing. So what I'm getting at here is doom scrolling it makes sense if you actually look at it logically. You don't have to be like angry or political about it. And there's a reason that we make podcasts that, or we make episodes like this that are contrary to popular belief. We're not going to get up here and just scream at you and say the world's going to fall just to get your views and get you paying attention. Okay. We're going to tell you, well, the news is tigers are coming. Let's break down what the evidence is that would suggest are tigers actually coming. And are they coming to stay or are they just passing through the area, right? There's an analogy here I'm making with what's happening with the economy. Are we going into a complete recession and tigers are going to decimate everything? Locusts are going to come eat all of our crops. We're all going to starve. Or is this just like bad weather? There's a hurricane and it's going to pass and things are going to be okay. And when will things pass? So that's what we're getting into today. You got to pay attention to what is in the article behind the title, like Kyle said. I thought that was a really good point.
I love it. So let's jump into an article and use this as a springboard to kind of initiate the conversation. So I'm going to share my screen, bring it up with everybody, and walk you through it here. So give me one quick second. All right. So if we look at, and by the way, the links to these articles are in the show notes. So if you guys want to see that or have, want to do your own research on it, feel free to check it out. But we can see this one that just came out from CBS News earlier this week, basically saying U.S. home prices could fall. So key point is could fall as much as 20% next year. So let's talk a little bit about what that means and dive directly into the article. So 1 second. I'm just going to hide this little banner so we can see. Give me 2 seconds here. All right, cool. Give you a little bit more real estate there. Oh, now we're switching over to the Golden State Warriors, David. I love it.
This is much
The other
more
one was just too tight.
I was being choked out by my own sweater.
All right. Well, next time I'm in your office, I'm going to try it out. Maybe it'll fit me. All right. So let's start this one off. So home prices have slumped during the second half of 2022, with demand for residential real estate cooling off in a number of cities across the United States. And give a +1 in the comments if you've seen a cool off in your city across the United States. Prices could continue to fall by as much as 20% next year as, number one, mortgage rates continue to climb and the housing market normalizes in the wake of a pandemic, according to a noted Wall Street economist. So this is Ian Shepherdson, Shepherdson, chief economist with Pantheon Macroeconomics, said in a report last week that tumbling demand for homes amid sharply rising rates is weighing heavily on housing prices. Here's what he said, and then we'll kind of stop and I'll kind of give you my 2 cents and we'll get to hear David. He said, "We expect home sales to keep falling until early next year. By that point, sales will have fallen to the incompressible minimum level, where the only people moving home are those with no choice due to job or family circumstances," he said. Discretionary buyers are disappearing rapidly in the face of the near 400 basis point increase in rates over the past year. So what I'm hearing Mr. Shepherdson say here is basically, hey, we're going to be cooling off from that crazy spike that we had due to the pandemic, mostly due to huge inflation by the Fed coming in, lowering the rates, and obviously a bunch of pent-up demand, right? So what Mr. Shepherdson's saying is basically, hey, we're going to be seeing a drop in demand, and specifically the only people looking to buy houses are people that basically are moving for a job or they've got some sort of family circumstance. My first question for you, David, is, do you see that as the truth, or do you feel like investors are still going to be looking to buy homes, despite him saying, hey, listen, I think it's just going to be the people that need to move and that's it?
That's such a good point. So let's go to the the analogy of the tigers that are coming to kill everybody. If it's not a tiger, it's like a bobcat, All right. Does a fully grown man need to be worried about a bobcat coming to try to kill him and eat him? Probably not. Bobcats are too little. But what about like your 4-year-old kid?
They should be afraid.
That's a legit concern, right? So when they write these articles and they say things like housing prices are expected to fall, the implication is that across the board, it's all prices are going to be going down. And the only people buying are blah, blah, blah. But that's not true because investors are always looking to buy. So right off the bat, this article is starting to lose some credibility when they say things like the only person looking to buy, because they're not including all of us that are buying houses as income properties, not as a place to live, because it's both, right? So what they're kind of telling us in a sense is like, well, if you're a 4-year-old child, you should be careful. You could get hurt. But a fully grown man doesn't need to worry about those bobcats that are roaming around. This is not a real tiger. So it doesn't mean that I'm saying don't take it serious. I'm saying take it serious if that is a threat to you. If you're a 4-year-old, that's a very serious threat. You don't want the bobcat to come eat you. If you're looking to buy a house as a primary residence, prices could keep dropping, and you probably don't have tools in your pocket like cash out refinances and raising rents and adding value to properties that will make money. People that buy houses to live in just set it and forget it. Buy a house, wait to hope the price goes up. And you got to remember, that's the majority of people reading these articles. They're not people like us that are tuning in on a Friday night to learn how to make money with real estate, that are really trying to master their craft. They're casuals, right? They don't really understand how to make money through real estate. So they only have one question: should I buy now or should I buy later? We're different. So right off the bat, a lot of this fear doesn't apply to us. You got some fully grown people here, and these are bobcats that aren't necessarily a threat. I will allow you to continue.
All right, cool. Great. Yeah, great feedback. So moving on, it says economists at Goldman Sachs, they actually say they expect home prices to fall by a more modest 5 to 10%. So 5% and 20% to me automatically, that's a big difference, right? So clickbait, big title says 20%. Oh my gosh, is my house going to lose 20% of its value? Well, like you talked about last night in the webinar, David, right? Obviously, it depends on location. Some areas are going to be hit harder than other areas for sure. But the second part is looking at the clickbait, there's a big difference between 5 and 20%. And he goes on to say that cities that saw the sharpest spikes in home prices last year are now seeing them return down to earth, right? So that includes places like Austin, Phoenix, Salt Lake City, Denver. If you're from one of those 4 markets and you're seeing the same thing, type into the comments what you are seeing. Moving down, home sales fell to 4.7 million last month, down 1.5% from August, according to the National Association of Realtor.
A number that's really worthy of being worried about. I mean, that's so minimal. Why even put it in an article?
Well, and we're actually going to dive directly into that NAR data because I have a whole article specifically on that. But you're right. I mean, that isn't a huge change. And I think a lot of people are forgetting that what goes up must come down, right? And like my opinion is, I've heard so many people saying, I've been calling for a housing crash for the last 8 years. It's coming. Well, of course, the houses are going to come down in value eventually. You can say it for 25 years and you're eventually going to be right. But that's my whole thing, is I don't think that makes a ton of sense to.
Well, and also look at the cities that they're referring to. The hottest cities in the whole country that you couldn't buy anything. Like anyone trying to buy in Austin had no chance. You're just going to get outbid. Phoenix, no chance. Salt Lake City, Denver, Colorado, they could probably throw like Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. There's a handful of other cities that you wanted to buy a house there. You can't. You're going to be 1 out of 20 people. You're going to get outbid. So they're posing it like, oh, we're having a correction. But really, okay, the temperature was 110 degrees. Now it's 95. That's not, you're freezing like they're making it sound. This is actually welcome. If I lived in that area, I would be happy to be seeing this news. Even if I was a homeowner, that's okay. You bought your house for 400. It's gone up to 800. Now it's down to 760. You can focus on the 40 grand that it went down, but are you ignoring the 400 grand that it went up before that happened?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing they mentioned here is that obviously the rising interest rates could further tighten the supply. So he mentions mortgage rates have more than doubled this year. The average rate on a typical 30-year mortgage rose this week to 6.94%, so just shy of 7%. In January, we were at 3.2%. And he goes on to quote Chief Economist Gregory Dacco, who basically says higher interest rates combined with elevated home prices have put the cost of a home out of reach for many potential buyers. Home price growth should continue to slow rapidly and is set to contract markedly next year. So, David, do you want to maybe jump in and just share a little bit about your opinion on the rising interest rates, what that does to the psychology of a seller and a home buyer, and then maybe share a little bit on your 2 cents about whether or not you think home price growth should continue to slow rapidly and contract a ton next year?
Well, to the casual who owns a house, their rates locked in. They don't care what rates are doing. It doesn't matter if you already own a home. And that's who this article is written to. What they care about is my house going up in value or down because it makes them feel wealthier. Now, it shouldn't make you feel wealthier. It's a castle built on a house of sand. You shouldn't be worried about what Zillow says your house is doing as far as your wealth is concerned if it's your primary residence, but people will. So they're the ones that are like, if rates keep going up, then my house value will keep going down and I'm going to feel more poor. And so this is clickbait that they're interested in. Now, let's say you're an investor. When we see rates going up, in general, that will usually mean prices should come down, not in every market, but over across the board. That's a general rule. They have that kind of a relationship. We should get excited about that because I would rather pay less for a house with a higher rate because there's a possibility that the rate could drop and my house would become worth more, or I could refinance and get a lower payment. As an investor, we are way more interested in what's my monthly payment than what is the asset worth, because the monthly payment affects cash flow, which is what most of us are valuing the property by. The person living in it doesn't understand cash flow, isn't looking at cash flow. They don't have that level of understanding or nuance with the asset class. So, of course, they see rising rates as evil and bad and terrible, and this is horrible, and you're ruining everything. My house isn't worth as much. And then the people that want to buy a house to live in, they're complaining about them too. All these rates are going up, even though the price is coming down. It's still not affordable. It's even more unaffordable with the higher rates. This isn't fair. Poor me. I'm mad. But to the investor, we're like, ooh, this is good. Because if I can buy a house with a high rate that still kind of cash flows a little bit, I can only get better. What if rates go back down? I can refinance into a rate and term improvement, and boom, my cash flow goes up. And if home prices went down because rates went up, what do you think is going to happen to home prices when rates go down? Value of the home is going to go up. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean like, okay, you're rich now, but it gives you more options. Now I can get a HELOC on that equity. I can sell and move that equity into something else. I can sell one house and buy 2 to 3 more. You start to get different options going on. So investors should be rejoicing when there's changes to the market, which is what these high rates are. This is actually a better situation for us to be in who are on calls like this.
That's really good. So you should probably say that again, David, the fact that this is something we should be excited about coming up in this market. David, do you want to take a quick second and tell us a little bit about what the Connect app and how it works?
Yeah, I just threw that up there. So Valuetainment is the company that Patrick Bet David runs. I recently did a podcast with them. I'll probably be doing some more. We had him on our podcast. Patrick created this app called Connect that allows you to connect with different influencers when you want to talk to them. So you can schedule a time to talk to me through the Connect app. If you just download the app on the App Store, then you look up my name, you'll see a little check mark next to it. It's the only place I'm freaking verified, but I'm glad that somebody did it. And you can schedule a time to talk to me. So if you have specific questions that we don't get to on something like this, you're like, I really want to talk to him, or it's embarrassing, I don't want to talk to him about it in front of anybody else, you can book some time to talk to me through that.
Awesome. I'm downloading the app right now so I can get a hold of you finally.
Yeah, that's the best way for you to get a hold of me. Actually, that's a good point. Book it there.
All right, let me let's keep this going. All right, so moving on, rising rates have also forced some home sellers to pump the brakes on selling their property because they would have to get a mortgage to buy another home as rates are surging. Shepperton goes on to say, it's entirely possible that even people who want to trade down will face a bigger monthly payment. That's a good reason to stay put, thereby constraining supply. The inventory of unsold existing homes fell for the second straight month in September, down to 1.25 million, according to NAR data. Again, NAR is National Association of Realtors. He goes on to say, Nancy Van Houten says, we think inventory could increase modestly in the next month or two as homes sit on the market for longer, but new listings continue to decline as sellers retreat to the sidelines. And then skipping down here, even the September home price data may not be capturing what's going on in this fast changing housing market. Sellers are having to reset their price expectations because buyers' purchasing power has been seriously eroded as a result of the quickly rising mortgage rates. I can tell you from my perspective and what I'm seeing in my market here in Sacramento as a real estate agent on the David Green team in the Sacramento market, that is actually absolutely true. Sellers are having to 100% reset their expectations. They can no longer say, well, my neighbor sold their house for $750,000, so I should be able to get at least $775,000. In the COVID market, they were able to say that. You can't say that anymore. Now what I'm seeing instead, we're having to readjust their expectations to let them know, listen, when a home buyer comes into this area, they're going to be looking at it through the lens of what's my mortgage payment going to be, not how much does the house cost, right? And I was just talking with the client about this yesterday, right? For somebody to live in Sacramento and pay $4,000, $5,000 a month for a mortgage might not make as much sense to live in a kind of a smaller submarket, right? We're not a huge San Francisco or LA market. And so we are absolutely seeing that. And as a result, houses are sitting on the market longer. Now, to my buyers, that actually that presents a great opportunity, right? We had a buyer recently buy a house for almost $150,000 below list, and that was because the sellers were motivated, right? And so sellers, depending on their circumstance and their situation, are more motivated than they were before, but I feel like there's a lot more opportunity. What's kind of your opinion on that in terms of how sellers need to be thinking and then how that actually affects the inventory and where we're headed?
I will answer that. Before I do, from the buyer's perspective, this is one of the reasons that we don't see prices completely collapsing like people thought. They thought, oh, well, rates went up, houses are now unaffordable. The price has to come down to the point where it would be the same payment as when the rates were lower. But it doesn't. Prices are not based on what the payment is to the buyer. That plays a factor in it, but prices are more based on what a buyer is willing to pay. And if there is less inventory to choose from and there's less houses to sell, the values aren't going to come down nearly as far, which is why we haven't seen values crash, because the article made a good point there. If you were to sell your house with your 2.95 rate and have to go buy one at 7.5, even though you downsize, your payment might go up. So what this does is it stops people from putting their house on the market. It's the opposite as when rates kept going low, low, low. So what was happening is Kyle buys his house at a $500,000 house at a 7% rate, or maybe let's say 6%. Okay. Rates are going down to 5 to 4 to 3. His value is going up of his home, giving him more equity. The more equity that he gets, the more likely he is to want to sell and reinvest that money. At the same time, he's selling with a 6% rate and buying into a 3% rate. So he has more equity and he can get a better rate. This is like all winds at your back that say, put your house on the market. What it does is increase the velocity of properties changing hands. People are selling more often and buying more often because that's what lower rates do, which is why we had a frenzy. Now we have the opposite. Rates are going up and it slows the velocity of properties changing hands. You're less likely to sell your house and lose your 3% rate to have to go into a 6 or 7% rate. And you might have less equity than you thought. Even though it's not exactly proportional, you're looking at your neighbors that got 800 for their house, and now you're only going to get 700 for yours. And you're ignorant because you're not paying attention to YouTube lives like this. You don't know how this stuff works. So you're not understanding that higher rates have made your house worth less, like every buyer is screaming that you should know. You're just looking at it with your ego saying, well, the Joneses got 800. I'm only going to sell for 800. I'm not going to sell at all, which makes people not sell their houses. They pull it off the market. Now, if you have Kyle as your real estate agent, he's going to do a really good job of explaining this to you and convincing you why you should sell and still helping you find another house you're going to like even better. But most agents aren't good. So this is the reason why, even though rates are going up, prices are not coming down the way that we want to believe they are, because inventory is not growing because people aren't selling their homes. Now, I forgot what your question was. You asked me something about it from the seller's perspective.
Yeah, basically, I mean, you're right on the track. Like, what what should sellers be considering
I
if
see.
that's the case?
Sellers should not be considering what another house sold for, because that house they're looking at might have sold when interest rates were at 4%. Now they're at 7.5%. Okay. What sellers should be looking at is what are the other homes that are available for sale. So when realtors like us run what we call a comparative market analysis, that's called a CMA. We do a search of all the homes on the MLS. We want to see what's actively for sale. These are homes that are on the market you can pick from. This is stuff you see on Zillow, on Redfin, on Realtor. Then we look at what's pending. It was on the market. It's under contract right now. Then we look at what's already sold. That's called a CMA. All right. You need to look at what we used to do is we looked at what's sold and we said, okay, well, that one sold for 800. The market's even better. Let's list ours for 825 or let's list ours for 850. That was as simple as real estate agents were doing to sell homes, and sellers were on board with it. Now you have to look at what's active. Instead of looking at the bottom of the CMA, you got to look at the top. And you got to say, all right, what's my competition listed for? Like it used to be there was 2 houses for sale, 5 houses pending, 15 houses sold, right? So I would tell you it looks like a pyramid in a healthy market. The base is really wide, that's your sold. The middle is pending, and then the top only has a little bit for sale. When I look at a CMA and I see that, I know this house is going to sell quick. Let's be aggressive. It looks like an inverted pyramid. You got a lot of stuff listed for sale, less stuff pending, and even less that's sold in a rough market. Okay. So instead of focusing on what's sold, which is what you do in a healthy market, you got to focus on your competition, which is what you do in a tougher market. The other thing is your agent has to call the pending properties agents and find out, I know you're listed for 800. What did you go into contract for? We used to do that because they were listed 800 and they went under contract at 850 or 880. So we would take our listing and we would list it at 880 because we saw what that pending one was for. Now you're listed 800, you go under contract for 700. As the seller, you want to know that. You want to know, well, it doesn't matter that the neighbor's house was listed for this price. What did it sell for? Because that's going to become the new comp. In a couple weeks when it closes, that's what the appraiser is going to be looking at. And now your house is worth 700, not 800. So that's 2 things you should be looking for to answer your question. First is, what's my competition look like? Because if I'm priced more than them, no one's going to pick me unless my house is way better. But if our houses are similar, I want to be the same or less than them. And the other one is, what are the pending homes look like? What are buyers paying less than asking price? Is my market slowing down? If all the other houses listed for 800 sold for 790, you don't have to go away to the bottom. But if they all sold for 700, you need to list your house much lower, because buyers don't care what other homes sold for. Appraisers care for that. All buyers care is, what are their options? What is the cheapest house that I like the most? And then once I pick it out, how much lower can I go?
That's a really good way to look at it. I love it. And yeah, thank you, Paul, for the love there. He says, by the way, whoever hasn't clicked the like button yet, if you're enjoying the show them some love. Yeah, we would really appreciate that. Hit that like button. Also hit that subscribe button as well, so we can see you get back here every week. All right, let's finish out this article. So they go on to say, how high will rates actually go? Economists expect mortgage rates to continue to climb the next year as the Federal Reserve pushes up borrowing costs in a bid to curb inflation. Rates could reach 8.5%, which would be another big shock to the housing market. And that's coming directly from NAR chief economist Lawrence Yun, which he told a group of real estate investors last week. I love it. This is another thing just to think about when you're reading articles. They literally took like a 7 or 8 word quote from the chief economist from NAR, Lawrence Yun, right? We're actually going to dive into an article here deeper, but what's the context in which he said that, right? But of course, when they use the word big shock, that can be really scary. Other analysts predict mortgage rates could hit double digits. Whalen Global Advisors says that it expects rates to reach double digits by April of 2023. So we're talking 10% or higher for a mortgage. Mortgage rates have not hit those levels since 1989, when they were 10.25%. The highest mortgage rate in U.S. history was 16.64% in October 1981. To me, David, it kind of feels like whenever I see these types of stats, they don't always tell the full story, right? It kind of feels like you're watching Sports Center, and I saw a meme the other day where they basically said something along the lines of like, Tom Brady is the first person ever to throw a touchdown with the sun at a southeast angle and at
When he was
87.5.
wearing black socks on a
Yes.
Tuesday with a barometric measurement of at least, yes.
Right. And right after a divorce was filed or whatever. Right. And they
Yeah.
like throw in all that information. And sometimes that's how I feel when I see these kinds of stats too. But like, I have been hearing about people talking about, hey, interest rates might be going up to double digits. And then I've been hearing some experts saying, hey, if they go up to double digits, well, they're probably going to come right back down. It's not going to be that way forever. What are your thoughts on just double digit mortgage rates and what that actually means? Because I feel like once you get into double digit rate per area, it kind of like creates this psychology of like, oh, this must be really bad.
Yeah. I don't know why that is, but it's totally true. Like, ask a little kid what the biggest number that they can conceive of is, and it's always 100,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like 99 is not any different than 100. And they might even know that conceptually because they can count. But if you tell like a 2 or a 3-year-old, I'm going to give you 100 M&Ms, they like they can't even conceive of how much that would actually be. You're getting $100. There's something about the digits that matter, right? Like you ask everybody, how much money do you want to make? And isn't the answer they always give 6 figures? 100,000. Here's what was funny. 20 years ago, they were still saying $100,000 a year. Do you know the difference between 100,000? I bet if we looked up a website that showed like adjusted for inflation, how much was $100,000 20 years ago, it would be a lot more. Are you doing that right now?
I'll pull it up right now.
I
Yeah.
can see you're doing it. So I'll let you do that and then I'll finish my point with that. But this double digit thing, it does. Why get scared of that? It's just math. Math is the least scary thing ever. You don't believe me? Look at the people that like math. Picture the person in your head that loves math. Are you scared of that person? Is that who you don't want to run into in a dark alley? The math person? Math, it just is. There's nothing scary about it. Oh, I like this, Kyle. All right, type in $100,000 from.
Yeah, we already got it. So $100,000 in 2002, in today's dollars would be $165,000, just short of it. Cumulative rate of inflation 65%.
That inflation number is way higher than they're actually showing on the government calculator. But even then, you don't hear people saying, how much you want to make? I want to make 165,000. They still say I want to make 100,000 because it's the number of digits that are in the number. Double digit inflation. I know. I hear a lot of people say, I've heard Patrick Bet-David saying it. Mark my words. We're going to double digit interest rates as if it's this cliff that we're going to fall over, as if that's completely different than 9.8%. It doesn't need to scare you. All right. In fact, there's people that are lending me money right now that are making a 10% return on their money. They're already getting 10%. I'm already paying double digit interest to be able to buy a property. So I'll take their money. I'll pay them 10% to use it. That will become the down payment of something I buy. And on top of that, I got to pay 7, 8, 9% interest to the bank. So I'm paying like 19%. I mean, that's not actually accurate, right? Because like you average the two. But the point is, I don't care if they're making double digit interest. I just care, what is the deal doing? How much money am I getting from the property? How much equity am I building in the property? How much cash flow do I have coming from other places? In the financial fortress model, interest rates don't matter. So yes, when you hear this, it's being spoken as if you should be really worried about it. Like everyone's talking about it as if that means it's really important. It's not. Like, they're just numbers, and math is not scary.
I love it. That's exactly what I tell all of my clients when we're negotiating, right? Whether I'm working with a seller or I'm working with a buyer, there's a lot of emotion that can go into the numbers, right? There's a lot of emotion that can go into, getting a seller credit or repairs, or I don't want to fix this, I don't want to fix that. And when I constantly remind them at the end of the entire thing, this is just a math problem, right? This is just a math equation. It needs to work for the buyer. It needs to work for the seller. We can do our best to absolutely provide some logic as to why our math formula is maybe a little bit more secure. But at the end of the day, like, your emotions really don't need to be in it, because at the end of the day, it's just numbers, right?
I like Paul Wynn's comment here. Isn't it the case that if property values dip below the loan principal amount, banks don't allow borrowers to refi? Generally, yes, Paul, you'd have to bring extra money to the table if that happened. But here's why I don't really worry about it. what is going to make property values continue to go down to where you were underwater? You owed more than what your property was worth. Kyle, what are we seeing that's making values go down?
What's making the values go down?
Yeah,
The interest rates going up.
that's right. So you're not going to do a cash out refi or a rate and term refi if rates are going up. You're going to wait till rates are going down before you do it. And if higher rates made prices go down, lower rates are likely to make them go up. So when you get to the point that you'd even want to do a refi to get a better rate, rates would have to come down, which means your property is worth more, which means that the concern that Paul has here isn't really one that you need to be worried about. Am I making sense there?
Yeah, that makes sense. Paul, if it doesn't make sense, type in an additional question there in the chat. All right, let's keep the show moving. So looking at the National Association of Realtors, they came out with their own article here about a week and a half ago, or almost 2 weeks now, about exactly what you were talking about in the last article, David. And this was their headline: existing home sales decreased 1.5% in September. So
I just think that's so funny. They're using this as something to scare you, because when I see that, I'm like, oh, I thought it would be way worse than that. 1.5, that's actually good news to me when I'm hearing it, especially because we're coming into this September, which is the slow time of the year when you'd expect sales to be decreasing anyways, because we're coming into the winter months.
Yeah, and that's what we'll see a little bit in this article. So existing home sales descended in September, the 8th month in a row of declines, according to NAR. 3 out of 4 major U.S. regions notched month-over-month sales contractions. So contractions means it's going down, while the West held steady. And then they go into a little bit about total existing home sales, and they give some specifics here. And then let's see what the NAR chief economist Lawrence Yun has to say. He says the housing sector continues to undergo an adjustment due to the continuous rise in interest rates, which eclipsed 6% for 30-year fixed mortgages in September and are now approaching 7%. Expensive regions of the country are especially feeling the pinch and seeing larger decline in sales. So, David, can you maybe explain a little bit about why he would say that the more expensive regions in the country are feeling that pinch of those higher interest rates, and as a result, maybe they're seeing more decline in the sales?
I would love to. Let's take a house worth $200,000. No, let's take a loan of $200,000. Doesn't really matter what the house is worth. And an interest rate of 3%. Kyle, can you take a couple notes for me here?
Yep.
All right. Principal and interest on a home where you borrow 200 grand and you pay a 3% interest rate is $843 a month. Now, let's say rates spike from 3% to 8%. That same $200,000 home is worth, or sorry, the payment is $1,468.
Okay.
So it was about $850 to about $1,450, right?
Yep.
Okay. It's not like that's nothing, but we're talking about, what is that? $700, $600?
Yeah, $600 to $700. Yeah.
Okay. $600 a month difference there. Now let's do the same thing with a house with a loan balance of 1.5 million. Okay. 3% interest. Your payment is going to be $6,324.
Got it.
Now that's not cheap. Okay. There's people listening to this like, whoa, that's an expensive house. Well, yeah, it's $1.5 million. However, in the grand scheme of the country, it's not like $6,300 a month is outrageously expensive. That is a high mortgage. That is more than what some people actually make at their job, but it's not more than everyone ever could make. Okay. Now watch what happens when we jump this up to the same 8%. The number becomes $11,000.06.
Oh.
So on a cheaper home, we saw the prices go up by about $600. On a more expensive home at 1.5 million, what's the difference there, Kyle? Like
it almost doubled. Yeah, it went from 6,300 to 11,000.
$5,000 a month just because of the rate changed on an expensive home. Okay, versus $600 a month because the rate changed on a cheaper home. This is what they're getting at. When you're borrowing a ton of money, the more you borrow, the more the rate matters. When you're borrowing a little bit amount of money, the rate is not as important. It's the same principle I talk about in long distance real estate investing when I get into upgrade hacking. So what I would say is Let me ask you a question, Kyle. Does the price of the tile that you pay for the home construction make a very big difference? Do you need to shop for the cheapest tile possible?
Not going to make a huge difference.
Now, what if I told you it's a 6,000 square foot house and you had to put tile on the entire thing?
Yeah, that's going to make a bigger difference.
Right? So you could buy like $2 a square foot tile or $6 a square foot tile. On a 6,000 square foot house, that's a very big number. Okay. But what if I said the house is 6,000 square feet, but you're only buying tile to do the shower?
Okay. Yeah. Then I won't really care what kind of tile it is.
It doesn't matter if it's $2, $6, or $20 a square foot. It's such a minimum volume that it's not that impactful on your budget. The labor is going to be the same to do that shower, whether the tile's cheap or expensive. So you might as well buy expensive tile because it's a smaller proportion of the labor versus if it's, I got to put tile on my whole house and you go from $2 a square foot to $6, that's a huge number. It's the same concept with interest rates. This is why the expensive markets get hammered when rates go up. They get absolutely devastated because the person who's like, well, it's a stretch, but I could buy that house if it's only $6,300 a month, has no chance of buying it at $11,000 a month. Okay, the person who's like, well, I'd really like to buy a house at 200,000, keep my payment to 850. They still could buy it at 1450, but maybe they got to work some overtime. Maybe their wife has to work a side job as a waitress. But like, there's options out there to make another $600 a month that people have. There's not a lot of options to make another $5,000 a month, and that's what we're getting at with the article when they talk about expensive areas have been hammered, whereas cheaper areas haven't been affected as much.
Let's keep it going. Great points. So what he says, Lawrence Yun, the chief economist for NAR, he says, despite the weaker sales, right? Obviously, we're seeing them go down. Multiple offers are actually still occurring with more than a quarter of homes. So more than 25% homes are getting multiple offers and are selling above list price, going back to what you were talking about, due to that limited inventory. The current lack of supply underscores the vast contrast with the previous major market downturn from 2008 to 2010, when inventory levels were 4 times higher than they are today. So what he's essentially saying is this is not an apples to apples comparison to the market downturn that we saw in 2008, 2010, primarily because we have less inventory than we did back then. And when there's less inventory, that means there's going to be more demand, which is going to keep those prices up, or at least keep them from declining as fast as they could. So they go in and say the median existing home price for all housing types in September was $384,000, an 8.4% jump from September of last year. So we're actually seeing still year over year an increase as prices climbed in all regions. This marks 127 consecutive months of year-over-year increases, the longest running streak on record. It was the third month in a row, however, that the median sales price faded after reaching a record high of $413,800 in June, the usual seasonal trend of prices trailing off after peaking in the early summer. So this is literally, David, what you were just talking about, right? Number one, there still is a lack of supply in several markets across the United States. And number two, if we look at it from number one, yes, prices are declining. Part of that is due to the usual seasonal trend. What's kind of your thought process on how we can tend to just focus on the month-to-month stuff, the small things, as opposed to looking at the big picture of what's actually happening?
Well, you focus on the small things when the villagers are telling you the tigers are coming. So every time a twig snaps, you're like, what was that? You're going to pay a lot of attention to it.
Mm-hmm.
But the big picture stuff is what you look back on in your life and you say, this is what mattered. These were the good decisions I made. If you said, David, what were the news articles in 2013 when you were buying this property? I have no idea. What I could tell you is I paid $260 for the house or $250 for the house. Rents were $700 a unit. I bumped them up to $800. Now they're at $1,850. Like, I don't know all the details. No one remembers those. They see the big picture type stuff. So I try to remember that when I'm moving forward. I try to not get too caught up in the scary details, unless they're telling me don't buy the property. And instead I try to think about what decisions would I make that I'm going to look back at 10 years from now and say that was a good decision. The details, zooming in on what's scary, will always stop you from taking action. Zooming out and seeing the big picture will almost always make it easier to take action, right? So, like, Kyle, there was a certain point in your life where you had to make the decision to have a kid.
Yes, there was.
What were you? Wasn't there a lot of details that you were worried about at that time?
Oh yeah, yeah. How are we gonna feed the baby? What am I gonna get enough sleep? Where are we gonna live? I mean, yeah, like literally every
Nonstop
detail I could
details.
obsess over.
Yeah. Now that you have the kids and you're looking back, do you feel like I should have paid attention to more of those details, or are you like, it really wasn't worth worrying about that? I'm glad I have the kid.
Yeah, exactly. It's after having the kid, it's like okay, I worried a lot over nothing.
Yeah. That's probably right. And I look at the same thing with most of the big decisions that I made when I was going to the police academy. I was super worried. When I got there, I realized that almost everything that I had been preparing for and trying to train is not what the academy was like. And so I worried about it for nothing, right? There's a lot of things that work that way. So I'm not saying be irresponsible and don't pay attention, but if you're reading the news like you should be, at least financial news, not, crazy, scary doom scrolling, and they say home prices are down 1.5%, you don't need to put a whole lot more time into worrying about that. That's like, why are we even talking about this if that's 1.5? Like, if you looked at your income and you're like, I made 1.5% less this month than I did last month, is that something that you're worried about? Like, oh my God, what am I going to do? No, it's
No.
barely even a blip on the radar. It's a similar thing here.
Let's keep it going. So yeah, first time home buyers. This really jumped out at me, David. First time buyers were responsible for 29% of sales in September, unchanged from August 2022, and slightly higher than 28% from September 2021. So within a year, even with the higher interest rates, more transactions are first-time homebuyers. NAR 2021 Profile of Home Buyers and Sellers, which the David Green team, we review that every single year because that helps us as real estate agents. They released in late 2021, found that the annual share of first-time buyers was 34%. That really jumped out at me, David, because a lot of these first-time home buyers, if not all of them, right, are coming with their own money that they've saved up or maybe that their family's given them, but they're not coming with equity from another property, right? They don't have equity because they don't have another property.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on, those types of metrics and what that means for the overall market? I mean, I think that's pretty interesting that they noted that.
Here's the first thing I would ask. If we're having a horrible crash and homes are unaffordable because rates are so high and the tigers are coming to kill us all, why are people still buying homes as a first-time home buyer? And why is the number the same as what it was before? I don't see any reason why we would see that continuing to stay steady if we were heading off the cliff like people think and a foreclosure wave was coming down the road. Like, if homes are so unaffordable, how are first-time home buyers who have no equity, like you said, able to buy them? Right? It's obvious to me that supply and demand are sort of doing what they do. They are balancing out. Kyle, did you ever take an economics class in college? You have like 7 degrees, so I'm sure at some point you might
I
have,
think I
right?
took one. Yeah.
I loved it. Like, I remember my freshman year of college. This was the first class I took my first day of college. Like, it was an economics class. That was my exposure, right? And I ended up getting the highest grade in the class, believe it or not. To me,
Mhm.
economics was just like common sense. I couldn't understand why anyone could struggle with it. I don't mean to be arrogant. Like, math people can't understand why no one could struggle with math, right? I was not that good with like calculus and stuff like that. That did not make sense to me. But law, economics, they're all like logic based. Supply and demand made a lot of sense to me. And we learned about Adam Smith, who was like considered one of the first economists. And he talked about what's called the invisible hand. Are you familiar with that concept? Do you remember hearing about that?
I don't remember that. Yeah.
The invisible hand was this concept he created to describe how prices balance themselves out. He's like, look, it's supply and demand. You have a certain amount of a thing and you have how much people want the thing. If a merchant is charging too much for a thing, no one buys it. So now they have to drop their prices down. You don't have to, like, the government doesn't have to regulate this. This invisible hand will move prices where they need to be. And if demand goes up for something and there's not enough supply, everyone's going to want to buy it. The merchant's going to move prices higher. You don't have to regulate this. Like, they'll figure it out, and the invisible hand will move it where it needs to be. That's why I don't freak out about this stuff, because I put my faith in the invisible hand. If every single house was just priced too high, they wouldn't sell, period. And they'd have to drop the price. And when they drop the price enough, if everyone jumps in on it, we know there's a lot of demand. And so now they're going to probably bump it up a tiny bit and see, can I get a little bit more? But that invisible hand is going to move this out. And every time we bump up rates a little bit, prices will probably come down a little bit in proportion to how bad people want this asset class. But home buyers, first-time home buyers that are reading all the same fear porn and doom scrolling that you're seeing right here, are still buying homes. It's not like we can't buy them. I'm looking at the comments here, and there's a lot of talk about foreclosures and how, like, they're crazy. I'd love to bring somebody in to talk a little bit about, like, this foreclosure wave that we're talking about, what it would take to actually get there. Why are people still buying homes if it's that bad, right? Like, there's a very good chance. What's that?
They're confident.
They're confident, and they're able to. We're not. Now, here's the caveat I will give. If you see people buying homes, but the loan products are trash, everything I'm saying goes out the window, because now you don't have an invisible hand guiding stuff. You have, like, little stupid things that humans are interjecting into this, where, like, okay, well, prices are too high, but we don't want to drop the prices on the thing the merchant's selling. So what if they throw something else in for free? When you start doing that kind of stuff, the invisible hand can't really work itself out. So if you start seeing adjustable rate mortgages, 2-1 arms, 3-1 arms, like ridiculous stuff, down payment assistance programs, when you start seeing people interfering like that, now you don't have supply and demand anymore. You've moved away from that model, and I can't predict what's going to happen, and I wouldn't defend what's going on. But as long as these are fixed interest rates, 30-year fixed rates, you're not going to see a wave of foreclosures. There's no reason to, right? Like, homes, you'd have to be like, I paid $500 for my house and now it's worth $200. I could let it go and buy something cheaper, but you probably can't buy something cheaper because rates are higher. You also don't have an adjustable rate. You got a fixed rate. So why would you stop paying your payment if you didn't have to? Okay. Like, this article is using data that is giving me confidence that the market is getting worse. More opportunities are coming for buyers. It's moving towards a buyer's market. Yes. But that doesn't mean we're going into a crash. This doesn't look anything at all like a crash so far.
Yeah, it's a great way to put it. And couple reminders. If you want to come in, if you want to ask a question or share your input on the state of the market, where we're headed, what are you seeing, what data are you referring to, text the number below, 833-777-0309. I mean, this show is for you guys. This show is for the people who are watching. This is not just something that David and I are doing for ourselves. So we want to have you come in and chat. And then just another reminder, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so yet, and if you feel like this show is bringing you some value. So let's jump right back in. So we mentioned first-time home buyers responsible 29% of the sales. Individual investors or second home buyers, right? Those are people buying vacation homes. Maybe they're buying an Airbnb, who make up many cash sales. They purchased 15% of homes in September, down from 16% in August, but up from 13% in September of 2021. So in other words, we did see maybe a 1% drop in investors from 16 to 15% in a month, but it's actually up from last year at this time, where we're seeing more investors in the market than we did last year, which you would think is a little bit counterintuitive because interest rates were much lower last year. But I think more investors are starting to see more opportunities in this market. Interestingly enough, regarding the distressed sales, foreclosures and short sales represented 2% of sales in September, a marginal increase from 1% in October 22 and from September 2021. So we are seeing a small increase in the amount of foreclosures, but nothing astronomical as of right now. David, your thoughts?
Well, it reminds me of the first crash I ever saw. So we talked about this on the webinar yesterday. Kyle and I were kind of growing up and just graduating college at the time that housing prices were exploding. This was like 2000 through 2006. That's right around the time we were getting out of college, getting into the workforce. You get your first job, you start making money. You're like, do I want to buy a house? That's what most people think. We're looking at the market like this is insane. So we didn't get in. And then the market crashed in 2010. And it continued to just stay really bad and get worse and worse and worse until 2013. And I didn't know anything. So I remember thinking, are they going to get down to where house prices are like $5 for a house? I'm going to wait till that happens and I'm going to buy a whole bunch of $5 houses and I'll figure it out from there. Like, I know how dumb this sounds. I was inexperienced. I didn't have mentors. We didn't have podcasts, or YouTube wasn't even invented yet. You just didn't understand it. You're like, at the time, all people said is that owning a home is so dumb. Don't ever do it. Like, we didn't even look at a house like an asset the way that everyone listening to this sees a home. You're like, I want that, but it comes with a mortgage that I don't love, right? We didn't even see a house. We just saw a 30-year payment that you were anchored to for life. When you thought about buying a house, that's the mental picture that you got. You're not buying a house, you're buying a 30-year mortgage, and you get a house as a consolation prize because of it, okay? And then in 2013 in Northern California, the amount of people that were buying these properties skyrocketed. It went from like houses were sitting on the market for 9 months, 10 months, a year, to every house was getting 3 to 4 buyers at a time. Rates had not changed. Okay. So Kyle, if you had to guess, what would have made houses that just sat there forever and prices kept coming down, they hit a certain point and then everyone jumped in and they went back up again. What do you think happened when they hit that point that caused that change?
Affordability.
So that was a part of it, but the problem was, even though they were affordable, no one wanted to buy the house because they looked at it like they were stuck. Can you think of anything else? We've never had this talk before. I'm kind of putting Kyle on the spot here.
I know. Well, and I was kind of halfway listening because I'm trying to field some of these questions.
That's a good point. So I'll bail you out here. It was investors. They hit a point where the price to rent ratio made so much sense that people started buying them as rental properties, and no one was really thinking about it at the time because no one wanted to be a real estate investor. It was looked at like, that's hard work. You're better off to just put your money in stocks or put it in a CD because you could get a 6 or 7% return on a CD. So why do you want to be a rental property owner to get a 7% return when you could get it easy? Okay. Prices got so low that investors started buying them. And then all the investors jumped in, and the next thing you know, you couldn't get anything. So I learned a valuable lesson. They don't go down forever. Like, if I'm looking at it from the perspective like Kyle just was, if a person wants to buy a house, I'm looking at affordability, I'm looking at risk, I'm looking at like, is it worth the headache? And I'm over here like, no, that house needs to be $5 before I'm going to buy it. And all these investors were like, okay, well, it's going to cash flow me $700 a month with very low risk, and it's going to go up in value at some point. And then what happened is the investors actually made them go up in value a lot because they bought it. They took inventory off the market. Supply went down. Demand increased as more investors came in. And the next thing you know, home prices skyrocketed. Okay. And I saw the same thing happen with rates. Rates were dropping and dropping and dropping. And I'm like, I'm going to wait. I'm going to refinance when they get even lower. Rates are below 5%. Rates are below 4%. Oh my God. Rates are at 3%. I could get a 15-year at a 2.3. This is insane. Are they going to go down to 0? And I actually thought that. I just didn't understand how interest rates work. I didn't realize 0 was not an option because it has to do with like a cushion needed to be built in between what the Fed sets rates at and what the mortgage rates are going to be. And that cushion was never going to allow it to go all the way to 0 unless the Fed went negative. Long story short, they don't go down to nothing, even though I thought it. So I'm not the oldest guy ever, but I've watched a couple of these cycles, and I was pretty young when I was first starting to pay attention to the whole thing. And I've learned prices will keep going down, but at some point it becomes attractive to someone. Right? They just don't go down forever. And I've talked for so long that I don't remember what your question was that you asked me about this. Is there a name in the English language for when you do that? Because I do it all the time. You like take a rabbit trail and then lose.
I just call it monologuing.
But sometimes you can monologue and come back to your point, right? And I just went so far away that I can't find my way back to mom and dad.
Short-term memory loss monologuing.
Yeah. So whatever your point was, it had to do with, I think, something with what makes prices go down and when they stop.
Yeah. And specifically around the fact of, individual investors. We were talking about how investors and second home buyers are pretty much still consistent from what it was a year ago.
There you go. We don't care what the price is. We care about what the cash flow is. The price doesn't matter. That's why we were buying when prices were high, because rates were low. And we're buying when prices are low, even though rates are high. That we're looking at it from a completely different lens. So all of these articles, all of the BS that people are talking about, the assumption is everybody is buying a house to live in. That's a completely different framework that people are analyzing whether they should do this or not. Not investors. Investors are asking, is there a tenant for it? Can I put it into my analysis on a spreadsheet or a calculator? Because we love that. And then how big is the ROI? And we're making decisions based off of that. And so just remember, a lot of these articles are not like, let's say that you're living in a village and you're scared to death of the tigers. Okay. Everyone looks at tigers like they're bad. But what if you're a hunter who makes their money selling tiger pelts? Does that not change the same news that everybody else is getting that scares them? You might be like, man, I'm a hunter that makes their money from tiger pelts and I've been starving, right? I've been digging for grubs and roots like Timon and Pumbaa, or I've been forced to be a fisherman even though I'm not good at fishing because there's no tigers. You're telling me all the tigers are coming? You start salivating with how exciting this whole thing could be because you're hunting. Investors are hunters. Right? The more blood is in the streets, the better it is for us. And that's why you sort of see me scratch my bald head when people get upset, when investors are like, these rates are too dang high. I can't, like, that's great. I want all my competition to be saying that. I want everyone to be thinking the same thing. There's a wave of foreclosures coming. It's all going to collapse. I want everyone thinking that. Because what if I got super lucky and rates went back up to 16%, Kyle? What would that have to do the prices for sellers to sell their homes?
They would have to come down
And
significantly.
they'd have to come down a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. So what happens when I buy that, what used to be an $800,000 cabin for $400,000 because the rate's at 16%? Do we think that they're going to stay there forever?
Nope.
No. Someone said blood in the streets. Maybe I said blood in the sheets or something. I don't know. Did I say the wrong thing there? Looks like they're correcting me. Blood in the swamp. What did I say? I do this all the time. If I can get it for 400 because rates are at 16%, when rates come back down to 6%, I get to do a cash out refi. I cut my mortgage in half, and the value of that cabin probably went from 400 back up to 800 or more. When you're playing the long-term game, you don't worry about what's like right in front of you. So what's my advice? If you're hearing this news and you're getting scared, you need to learn how to be a tiger hunter and not afraid of tigers.
Or should we get in the tiger pellet business?
That's not bad. I wonder what that would look like in this analogy. How do you go around picking up tiger shit and selling it for something?
That's a great question.
Maybe that's like Airbnb arbitrage. They're like, I don't actually buy it, but I'm going to manage it for somebody else. Those are like tiger poopers.
Yeah. Actually, 2 questions from the comments for you, David. This one's more of off topic, but Bruce asked the question, has anyone ever made David Green laugh? And more specifically, what makes David Green laugh? I think people are curious.
How do you want to answer that, Kyle?
I want you to answer it.
But you know better than I do what makes me laugh, or if anyone ever has.
Cheesy jokes, for sure, like dad jokes. You're very good at telling them.
But I don't laugh at them very often.
Steve Carell has made you laugh many times.
You just made me laugh right now saying that name.
See, there
The
you
Office is a weakness of mine. I have no street cred. So when I used to work in jails as a deputy, I worked in like the high security jail. Basically, it was equivalent of a prison. This is where the people would stay if they were in prison and they were coming to like get tried on a new case, or they were appealing their case, so they had to come to a local court. We would house them in our county jail. Or if you were waiting to be sentenced and you were like a really bad dude, you went to the jail that I worked at. So it was very dangerous. And I learned that if you showed weakness, if you smiled too much, if you laughed, the inmates saw you as a target. And it was like jail probably isn't what most people think. It's not like they're all behind bars and you're like walking next to their bars. They come out for free time and there's like 45 of them walking around and just you. It's like you work a Marine World and you're swimming in the tank with the sharks. If they decided that they want you, you're not winning a fight with 45 people. Like there isn't a fight to be had. You're done. And so I sort of learned like the more that you give away of your personality, the weaker that's going to make you look. And I think that probably had something to do with my personality. What I'm getting at is The Office. It goes beneath that. It takes my legs out. I can't help it. I think The Office is the funniest show. ever been made. And I don't know if there's one episode I can watch without laughing out loud at least one time. Have you ever seen me laugh, Kyle, other than The Office?
I can make you laugh pretty good.
Well, you're pretty funny.
Yeah.
Tiger felt PJs. That's funny that Thomas Sullivan came up with for all the tiger hunters out there.
It's not a bad idea. And
we were talking tiger print.
Yeah, we were talking about, what were we talking about? We were talking about like flannel nightgowns last night in the webinar. So I could, mix the two together somehow.
Bruce said, I just can't picture him laughing. David Green is the type of guy to write LMAO on a text and not even break a smile in real life. False, Bruce. I have never in my life written LMAO on a text.
Maybe LOL.
I only just started doing LOL like 3 years ago. I waited a really long time because I thought LOL was for girls and I just wouldn't do it. And it hit a point that it became so mainstream that like a normal guy could say LOL. And that was the only point when I started doing it at all. But I do remember for a long time looking at men that would type LOL with a bit of disdain. Like, you're not a real man if you do that.
And I will say, David is an honest guy, Bruce. If I send him something funny or a funny meme or something like that, he will respond, I literally LOL'd on that one. So he'll make sure to let me know. He'll put in more like context just to know, hey, I want you to know I really did laugh at that one. It's not.
We need to start saying LLOL. Literally laughed out loud.
Yeah. That's a great idea. All right, back to the topic, though. I saw one good question in here. Oh, this was a good question regarding the whole tiger thing. Will said, how do we position ourselves to be the hunter?
That's really good. First thing off, a hunter needs a weapon, okay? So in this situation, a weapon is the ability to analyze a deal. Because if you don't know if you want to go take it down, you have no means to take it down. Doesn't matter how much you understand tigers, you need a weapon that can actually take out a tiger. So analyzing a deal, and maybe more specifically, like being pre-approved to buy something. You need to be able to get a loan if you want to be able to do this. The second is, once you've got a weapon, you need to understand the enemy. How do tigers work? How do you know if that's a tiger that you should take out or you should not? And this feels kind of weird now. We're talking about killing tigers, and that's a sensitive thing. I hope you guys understand this is just an analogy because we started off talking about tigers. Please don't cancel me. You have to be able to know, like, what's the deal I want to take down? Okay. What's the market doing? So a lot of what we're talking about right now is tiger behavior. We're talking like when you're taking courses or you are attending a retreat I put on, or you're on a YouTube live like this, or you're listening to me on the podcast. That's all a form of studying tigers. You're following where they go. You're learning their patterns. You're trying to figure out what the market's doing. The last piece is you need ammunition. Once you've got the weapon, you need to be able the ability to take a tiger down. All right. And then once you've gotten it taken down, you got to know, like, how do I get the pelt off of it? That's managing the property. This is how you like make the thing profitable. So falling in love with studying the behavior of tigers is the first part. Positioning yourself as a hunter has to do with building up your savings so that you have the ammunition to shoot at the deal, getting pre-approved for a loan, which is a function of a weapon. And then your ability to look down the sights and use the weapon is kind of like your analysis. All right, this is a good deal or this is not a good deal. I don't want to go after it. So you're in the right place if you're trying to learn to be a hunter.
Great question.
You guys remember that like dentist that shot a lion one time and the entire internet hated him?
Yeah. What was the name of didn't the lion have a name?
It did. They named the lion, which was funny because none of them ever like had been to see this lion. You're looking up right now. I know you are.
Was it Cecil the lion?
Yes, Cecil. And people just turned on that guy. He was like a dentist that took a safari and he shot a lion, which lots of people go to Africa and they pay for these hunts to go shoot some animal and they take a picture with it because they paid a lot of money to go on the hunt and it's their way of trying to look like they're cool. That's what made me scared about all this tiger talking. It's like, oh man, don't bring this back up. Yep, Thomason brought up. See, people remember. That's funny, the stuff that we remember. Like, we remember Cecil Lion. Now tell me, what was going on in the real estate market at that time when that happened? Not one of you people remember. All those details that everyone was scared about, you don't remember at all, but you remember the lion. Let me give you guys another piece of advice. Jocko Willink talks about an extreme ownership, and he's actually mentioned this to me before. When he was managing soldiers that were on protection convoys, he noticed it was very difficult to get them into an aggressive, confident state of mind. So when you were like, okay, this Jeep is going to go from this place to this place, and you got to keep it safe, you live in a state of fear because you're always waiting to be attacked. You're full of anxiety. You're defensive. You're not like confident, like, let's go engage the enemy. You're like, oh God, oh God, oh God, what's going to hit me next? And it's not a safe place for a soldier to be. And you don't want to be thinking like afraid of what's going to come. So what he did is he took these convoys, and instead of saying stand next to the Jeep and wait for something bad to happen, he said arrange patrols that you leave the Jeep and you go out ahead or you go out to the side and you go look for an enemy that might attack us. And that subtle change took them out of a defensive mindset, like what's going to happen to me, to an offensive mindset that made them the hunter. Right. That's what we're talking about here. All this news article is scary, and we're all waiting to see what's the terrible thing that's going to happen in the economy. And you get full of anxiety and fear. But if you turn yourself in the hunter, you're like, oh, tigers are coming. This is awesome. I've been hungry and I've been needing tigers to come. Right. This is a benefit for me. And now you become confident and the emotional state changes. And that's really what we're talking about. Does that make sense?
It makes sense to me. Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's keep it rolling. Single family and condo co-op sales. So single family homes declined, the sales of those homes declined to a seasonally adjusted, again, keyword seasonally adjusted, annual rate of 4.22 million in September, down just under 1% from 4.26 in August and down 23% from the previous year. The median existing single family home was 391 in September, up now 8.1% from last year. Existing condominium and co-op sales were recorded at a seasonally adjusted annual rate of 490,000 units, down 5.8% from August and 30% from 1 year. The median existing condo price was 331,700 in September, an annual increase of 9.8. So then they pretty much finished the article by saying buying or selling a home involves a series of requirements and variables, and it's important to have someone in your corner from start to finish to make the process as smooth as possible. Blah, blah, blah. Realtors rely on in-depth knowledge of the market and objectivity to deliver trusted expertise to consumers in every U.S. zip code. And that's basically what we're trying to do here, right, David, is we're trying to have an actual logical discussion about what's happening in the market, right? We're not trying to just rely on clickbaity headlines and doom scrolling headlines and use that to derive our final conclusion about what's going to happen at the market. We try to look at it as objectively as we can, as clearly as we can. We actually invite people to come onto this platform with us and talk to us about what they're seeing, what they're feeling, as opposed to just saying, hey, yeah, I have a crystal ball. Here's what's going to happen. Or just coming out with all this, bravo, huge, big confidence and just puffing our chest and saying what we're going to do. We actually try to look at these things from a very clear, objective level. From your perspective, David, and just your experience, because you've been a real estate agent, you've coached several real estate agents. We have a real estate agent team. I've worked with a ton of our agents, taught them, coached them. When you're talking about real estate agents and finding a good real estate agent, especially in this market, what types of questions or traits should buyers be looking out for? And maybe, I guess, yeah, what should they be looking out for when they're looking for an agent?
First piece, that's a really good question there, Kyle, is if you're an investor, I like to ask the agent if they're an investor too. They don't need to be one, but it really helps if they are one. The confidence that they have, the advice they give you, the counsel they give you is going to be different if they're an agent. Second, and this one catches a lot of people off guard, I'm less interested in customer service or hand holding, or did they answer my phone the first time I called, or did they make me wait before they called me back? I'm way more interested in what resources do they have. If I buy a house and I need a contractor, could you refer me to one? Absolutely. I've got several I can give you. Hey, I might need a property manager to look at what I'm buying. Do you have a good one? Oh, I have a great one. I'll introduce you to him right now. Hey, what if this happens? Do you have a person? Yep. I want that agent, because they're more than just my agent. They're actually going to help me to get like a foothold in the market. So I ask a lot of those questions. The third piece I want is an agent that's going to push back on me. I don't want it. The worst thing ever, guys, is when you go to an agent knowing very little about real estate compared. I don't mean like you know nothing. I mean, compared to me, compared to what the agent should know more than you. And you tell them, here's my plan. I want to buy a house with blah, blah, blah. And they go, great, I'm on it. And everything you ask, they say, great, I'm on it. Great, I'm on it. Great, I'm on it. And they don't ever tell you that what you want to do isn't possible and you're not going to succeed, but you don't know why you're not succeeding. So you think there's something wrong with you. Am I making sense with this? Like imagine you're dating somebody and you say, I want to get married. And they're like, hey, no problem. Let's date. Like, I want to get married too. And then you date them for 3 years and they're just never asking you to marry them. You're going to start to wonder what's wrong with you. Why don't they like you? What if they never wanted to get married? Or what if they looked at you and were like, yeah, I would never marry someone like you, but they don't tell you that. You're going to start to think that there's something inherently wrong with who you are as a person. The same thing happens in this relationship with an agent. You're trying to find a deal. You're trying to get married here. Okay. You're not wanting to just date real estate forever. You're trying to build wealth with it. And if the agent isn't telling you that your plan isn't going to work, they're not doing you favors, even though they make you feel good. So I like an agent that says, no, David, that won't work. Kyle and I were just on a phone call with the property management company that I'm looking into possibly having them manage a property of mine, maybe a couple. And I'm looking to see, are they going to tell me no? If I say, hey, here's my plan, I want to buy a house and do this, or they're like, sounds great. Yep, we'll help you with that. Okay, you got it. Yes, sir. If they're saying yes to everything and I'm just throwing spaghetti at the wall, that's a yes man or a yes woman, and we're not going to get anywhere. I want them to say, I would recommend you don't do that. That's not the best use of your money. Your money would be better used over here. And if I'm like, well, that's not what I thought. I thought something. I want them to have the guts to come back and tell me, yeah, that ain't where it's at, chief. And I want them to then tell me, here's what you could do. Okay. So yeah, like Will says, an advisor versus a yes man. Advisors they're not gonna tell you no with everything. I'm not saying that they need to just be like argumentative with you, but you want a person that has the spine and the wherewithal to say that is not a good idea. So if one of you came to me and you said, hey, David, this comes up a lot. There's a turnkey company in the Midwest, and I'm looking at some deals they have, and I can get a 12% return on my money. The property is $80,000, and it's not in a good neighborhood. It's in a D-class area, and you give some excuse to me why you want to buy it. I'm going to say straight up, no, don't do it. Right. And that's because I'm looking out for you. If you come and you say, hey, David, I want to buy a property in, whatever the things are I don't like, the wrong area or a bad neighborhood, or you're buying it purely for cash flow, but you don't know if you're actually going to find a tenant or not. All right. I'm going to say, don't do it. If you come to me and you say, David, I want to buy in the Bay Area, I want a 20% return on my money, cash on cash. I'm going to say, well, this is not the market to do it in. This is a market where you're going to make millions of dollars over a 5 to 10 year period, but you're not going to make a ton of money in the first 1 or 2 years. It's going to take some time, right? And if you tell me, no, I don't believe you, I want to do it anyway, I'm going to say, well, then you're going to have to find another agent, because I'm not going to spend all my time looking for a house that you're never going to buy. What I would say is this is a great market to house hack in. You can find an investment property like this. Would this work for you? And in 5 years, this is what you'd be getting. I would just tell you what the strengths are of this market and strategies that work here. When I get a yes man or a yes woman, that's not the right person. They need to be able to push back. So if your realtor is not pushing back on you, they might not be the right one.
Yeah, I mean, I literally had that conversation today with a buyer that called and said, hey, I'm interested in investing in the Sacramento market, and I'm looking for cash flow, right? And that's all I want. And so we had to have a very long conversation about, well, cash flow is not something you may immediately find in this market. It actually will be a lot more challenging to find right now. However, here are some options that are working in this market. This is what we're seeing a lot of the successful investors do. And having those types of conversations go a lot further. And even if they don't end up working with you, even if they don't end up working with you in that market, they're going to be grateful for the service and the consultation that you brought them. And guess what? You'll probably get, as a real estate agent, you'll probably get future business from them because you were straight up with them and you weren't just a yes man or a yes woman and started chasing your tail. So that's a really good way to put it. By the way, David, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and show a quick comment here. This is a little bit of a side note here. We had let me remove this really quick. I got to share this with you because I think it's hilarious. This is my son here, Isaac. He's that YouTuber, Isaac24. And so if anybody wants to go subscribe, make sure you go follow his channel. He's got a picture of his pet turtle here. The funny thing is he asked me the other day, he said, Dad, what was your number in high school? I'm like, it's number 4. That's my basketball jersey number. And I felt really good that my son was going to go ahead and use my number for his YouTube handle. And then a day later, I look at it and it's that YouTuber Isaac24. And I'm like, what the heck? He's like, well, that's Uncle David's number, and I wanted to follow in his footsteps. So you have more sway in my household with my son than I do, David. So come on, man.
Oh, Bruce just got his answer of what makes me laugh. I saw that coming. Isn't it funny that a prophet is without honor in his hometown? We always listen to everyone's dad that wasn't our own dad.
Yes.
I remember that. Like, I remember the dads complaining about it in front of me. Like, we were playing baseball. My dad was like, he doesn't listen to anything I say. But like, I would apparently listen to what his friends would say, you know? That's
Yeah, and
funny.
I can say actually from a dad, I am actually really grateful that he has a positive male influence in his life outside of myself, and that you are that person. So, I mean, no one better to have in their life than an Uncle David. So, that is something I'm very grateful for, even though it can hurt the ego from time to time.
Well, thank you. You took that L like a real man. You took the L to give Kyle an F for respect in the
Yes.
chats. And while you're at it, go follow. What was it?
It's
Isaac
that
24.
yeah, that YouTuber Isaac24.
That YouTuber Isaac 24, and give him a compliment on his turtles. And does he have chickens on there?
Yeah, I think he's got chickens, some prank videos, him pranking his sister. He was out trick-or-treating the other night and basically giving out his handle. I think he's going to take your idea of the QR code, put it on a shirt, walk around, and just, get people to subscribe.
Isn't it amazing that like kids like him have just zero fear of it? I would have been scared to death to do that when I was his age.
Oh yeah, he's good. He's putting himself out there. I think he's seen us do it. So, he wants to follow in our footsteps to some degree.
All right, I'm gonna have to bring Isaac into my studio and record like a market update with him talking about home prices. All right, so Isaac, start studying home prices. We're gonna be bringing you in to do some work. Thank you for that, Rhonda. Thank you for subscribing to Isaac's channel. It's very sweet.
By the way, Rhonda is the newest member of the David Green team. Just
Way to
joined.
go. Good to have you.
Welcome, Rhonda. By the way, whoever's watching this, if you are a real estate agent or you know somebody that's a real estate agent and they're interested in joining our team, for those of you that don't know, a lot of people actually don't know, the David Green team is not just based in the Bay Area. The David Green team is also based out of Sacramento, so pretty much all of NorCal. And then we also have a real estate team in Southern California as well. So if you know anybody that's looking to join a team, a lot of agents are looking to sort of leave their team or find something new. They want to go to a team that's actually cohesive and growing, whereas a lot of other real estate agents and teams and brokerages are kind of failing right now. We would love to have a conversation with them. So if you want, send an email to, I'll put it up here, info@davidgreen24.com, or better yet, go to davidgreen24.com/careers and have them fill out an application there. We're pretty much all over the state of California, and we're also looking to expand out to other markets as well. So I'd love to have a conversation with them and see about any potential opportunities to join the David Green team as we continue to expand. Katie says,
that goes for real estate agents. That goes for loan officers. If you're currently a loan officer and you would like to join a better brokerage and have more opportunity, we want you to be on the one brokerage. If you have property management experience managing short-term rentals, I want to hire somebody to be a property manager. So if you're seeing this, please email go to the URL on screen here, davidgreen24.com/careers, and let us know that you'd like to do that. We're looking for transaction coordinators that are okay to work remote, as well as people that are just highly skilled, badass assistants. If you're really good at getting a lot of stuff done and you're okay with working remotely, or you'd like to, we'd like to hire you. What else, Kyle? Is there any other positions?
Like a coordinator of events and event planning, as well as a coordinator of marketing.
Yes, we're looking for a coordinator market or an inside sales agent. If you have experience selling different products, we're looking for someone that we can route people to that want to either book me to speak somewhere or get connected with someone on our team, or take a program that I'll be putting together on long distance investing or BRRRR, whatever it is we do. We definitely need someone that has some experience with inside sales. So yeah, didn't even think about that, but that's a good point.
Absolutely. So yeah, Paula, Katie, absolutely. Go to davidgreen24.com/careers and fill it out, and we'll get on the horn and have a phone call with you about it for sure. Would love to chat some more. We'd love to be in Florida.
All right. Do we have anybody that wants to come in and chat?
No, we got a quiet chat tonight. We just have a lot of people that have been cool in the actual text chat, but nobody has wanted to come in and actually ask a specific question about the market. But that's okay. That means you're just doing a really, really good job of explaining it all.
Am I intimidating? Do people not want to come on because they think that I'm going to make them look bad? I'm not going to make you look bad. And if I did, you're going to like it. Okay. I'm like the most interesting man in the world. If I punched you in the face, you would have the strong desire to thank me. If I wasn't David, I would be the life of a party that I've never even attended. Okay. It's so nice that sharks have a week dedicated to me. I just realized that these most interesting in the man, most interesting man in the world jokes don't sound good when you're saying them about yourself. They need to be said by someone else. It just sounds wildly arrogant that I'm sitting here saying all this about myself. And I think you were trying to figure out, Kyle, like, what is he doing right now? And why is he saying this?
What are you doing and what are you saying? And Paula, I just sent you the invite if you want to come on.
Yeah, so somebody come on. You're going to be famous. Don't you want to be famous? People for years are going to be watching this video on YouTube, and they're going to see you asking great questions, and you're going to be inspiring lives. They're going to be like, wow, that person's question and courage was so great that now I want to go take action. And you are building rewards and treasures for yourself in heaven where you'll be rewarded for this good works. Why would you not want to join us right now?
Yeah, and give a thumbs up if you do think that David is intimidating. I know that a lot of kids came up and shook your hand at BPCon, so I don't think you're intimidating to kids.
Yeah, Isaac doesn't mind me. He's Isaac 24.
Yeah, that's right. And
But I've always said this, man. Little kids and dogs love me. Almost every grown up doesn't. Like, I like Daryl's quote. I love David Green over time. I like seeing how tall he was at the BPCon bonus episode. No one likes me in the beginning. I always get like, I have resting cop face, RCF, right? And people will always say like, I was intimidated of you in the beginning. It's just, that's normal. Like, you'll get over it. But nobody actually loves me when they first meet me other than little kids and dogs. Dogs like me a ton.
I was actually talking to somebody last week about your relationship with dogs.
No, you weren't.
Yes, I was.
No way that's true.
Yes, that's 100% true. Because the way that you look at dogs is probably the way that your dad looked at dogs, which is like, hey, you were for a utility, you were for a use. And I remember when I used to go to your house, like, because my family with dogs was different than your family with dogs, right? My family with dogs, it was like our baby. We dress it up and put little bows on her and talk to her in a high voice and everything. And then when I went to your house, I couldn't wait to go pet your dog. And like, you guys were like, no, go sit down, go lay down, do your job. And like, because you guys used your dog for hunting and stuff like that. It wasn't really like a baby.
No, and here's what's okay. Can I give you a little bit of philosophical monologuing before I bring in Paula here?
Sure.
This is a problem. I think, and this is not directed at you, Kyle. Okay. This is like the people who treat their dogs like humans. They're like, they dress them up in clothes. They're like, don't say that. You're gonna hurt his feelings. Or they're like, this is his favorite. And I'm like, how do you know that that's his favorite? How could you know that's a dog's favorite? They don't talk. They eat everything. Did you like put these two kinds of food together and do a split test over and over and over, and the dog consistently chose this toy or this food? Like, everything's a dog's favorite when you're playing with them or you're giving it to them. Every food is their favorite. They just love people. Anytime you're happy with the dog, like, remember Cesar Millan, he used to talk about that. He's like, they just want to make you happy. If they think making you happy is sitting when you say sit, they'll do it. If they think making you happy is getting in bed with you because you've got them into bed, they're going to get in bed with you. Like, dogs just want you to be happy. And one of the things that I learned from that is that, like, you don't make dogs happy by talking to them like they're humans, because they're not. It actually confuses them because they're like, I don't really know how to make you happy. What am I supposed to do when you talk to me like this, or you make me wear this sweater, right? What they love is when you give them like clear direction. Like, you'd make me happy if you laid down on only that spot when you came in the house, or when I say it's time to go outside, if you went outside, or it's time to go hunt the birds, we go hunt the birds. Or it's time to play fetch, we're going to play fetch. Like, I think is the key with why dogs like me, because I don't try to get their approval. You ever notice that, Kyle? that people will find dogs like, I really want to make that dog like me.
Mhm.
And they treat it the same way you try to make a 5-year-old like you by like lavishing it with attention and gifts and like complimenting them and like talking to them in a baby voice. Dogs are like, oh, I'm the alpha. You're boring to me. You want my approval. I do it the opposite. I'm like, I don't care that you're a dog. I'm a human. It's way better to be me. You need my approval, right? Like, let's see if you can earn it. What are you good at, dog? Do you do what I want? And then when they're like, oh my God, I'm making them like me, I'm making them like me, they get all excited. And I think that's why dogs listen to me. I have no idea because this cannot be proven, but yeah, I still believe this theory anyways. Okay.
But there's a lot of people out there right now that are thinking, but yeah, David, you don't know my dog. Like my dog, she knows me and she does understand everything that I'm saying, right? So
That's exactly right. My dog is different. I know what they're thinking. Yeah. They love this.
Yes. All right. Enough of the dog talk. Let's bring in Paula from Orlando. Paula, welcome to the David Green Real Estate Friday live show.
Hey guys.
What you've been here with us before, right?
I've been here before.
Awesome. Well, welcome
It's a
back.
Great
I remember
pleasure.
those pictures.
Thank you.
Yeah. So tell us, what do you have for us tonight?
All right. So first of all, I love the episode you did on for the BP Con and David's jiu-jitsu moves and all that. Great stuff.
So you enjoyed it. You like having a little bit of fun, not just getting
absolutely. Yes.
That's good to hear, Paula, because I do hear complaints sometimes in the comments where people are like, why is there all this laughter and joking? Just tell me where I'm supposed to buy the house. And then I wonder, like, is this fluff that people don't like?
No. When you love what you do, you have fun, every once in a while too.
Exactamente.
It's all good. Exactamente. So I was texting Kyle because I was not too long ago at the economic development meeting here at Osceola County, which is Central Florida, really. And everything that was told there makes me agree with what you were saying. These whole collective panic about the market crashing and all that, it depends on the area, it depends on the market. And I was just listening to whatever they were saying, and by 2040 the population here is expected to grow 55%. So we are already developing 846 properties, and then there are over 700 more. They have submitted projects to continue to build, and people keep moving. So do I really have any reason to believe that our market will decline or crash? It's so it really depends on, you really have to get informed and choose your resources carefully. If all you see is television and whatever catastrophic videos you find on
that's
YouTube
so
or
wise,
something.
Paula. And you know what? I really feel this applies to more than just real estate. It applies to everything, which is one of the I can't think of the word I'm looking to describe here. Like one of the metrics that I use to determine if something's inherently true. If it's true for this, it should probably be true for everything else also. So like you probably have some girlfriends who, are you married, Paula? I think you said you were. I don't remember.
Yes.
Okay. Do you have some girlfriends that when they get around you, they just complain about their husbands all the time? Or they're happy with their husband, but then their girlfriends start telling them like, what? He doesn't do that. He should be doing this. Like, man, he should be acting this way. That's how men are supposed to be acting. And now you start to wonder like, oh, like, does my man suck? Yeah, I thought I was
paying attention, maybe.
Now, yeah, exactly. It puts doubt in your head because you're hearing all this negativity of how something's supposed to work, where before you were content and happy in a relationship. Now, all of a sudden you think that you're not. The same thing can happen when you're scrolling through Instagram and people are taking carefully selected photos where they look the best as possible, where they have the best food they've ever had on the best trip they could ever go on. And that's all they post. And you're like, here I am on a Friday night, sitting on a couch, listening to this bald guy in a blue shirt talk about real estate and tigers.
And dogs.
And they're out there in, amazing locations having this life that I don't have. And then you start to feel bad. You have to be very careful because that crap can start to seep in, and now you're not happy with the life that you're living, where other people might be looking at you like, I'm trying to remember, where did you come from? Was it Venezuela, Argentina,
Chile.
Chile? Like, how
Hmm.
many people in Chile wish they could have your life right now?
Oh, wow.
Right?
A
Like,
lot.
if
Yes.
you're looking at them, you're like, I am so blessed, I am so lucky, I have positive energy. It makes you want to go take on the day and give it everything you have. Be very
Hmm.
grateful for your husband and the things that you have in life. Versus when you're looking at, Kim Kardashian's Instagram, and all of a sudden now you think your life sucks. It's amazing how just what you're looking at can have such a big impact on how
Hmm.
you're feeling.
Yes, absolutely. We are facing other challenges, though. A lot of whatever is being built is mostly luxury apartments. So we do have a problem with affordable housing or low income housing. And it again, it's going to be, you know, we depending on the market, depending on the area, we're going to have challenges, but that doesn't mean that, it's a disaster. And
So
no.
you want to talk about some like solutions to those challenges?
Well, I think it was a common complaint at that meeting. Everybody was worried about what's going to happen with the families that are currently in certain areas that are being
Mhm.
developed more towards
Higher
like
end.
the look right
Yes.
higher end. Um, so they are developing more like better methods of transportation and all that. Um, I I still think they're missing the point a little bit, but the only thing that we do have a lot of land in between, I would say, um, Davenport and Tampa, let's say. So it's still Central Florida, but towards the Gulf of Mexico. So we still have a lot of land to develop,
Okay.
but uh, affordable housing, it's going to be a hit, I think.
So here's
Uh,
something I'd like you to consider. There will
mhm,
never be a time in our lives where the best real estate that everyone wants the most will not have a problem with affordable housing.
correct.
Okay. There's no way around it. It's how supply and demand works. Now, it doesn't mean that I don't have sympathy or concern for those affected by it, but it's like the law of nature. Okay. Like,
Right.
tigers eat animals. And I can feel bad for the animal, but they're still going to get eaten by a tiger. What we see is a lot of this was happening in San Francisco maybe 5 to 10 years ago. It became so expensive. There was so much demand. Tech companies were moving in. Everyone wanted to live there. The wages were incredibly high, that if you were the person that like was a cleaning person at the hotel, or you ran a sandwich shop, or you
Hmm.
worked in a coffee shop, you could not live in San Francisco. You couldn't.
Right.
Okay. There's
Right.
two approaches to take. We could feel sorry for ourselves that we can't afford to live in the most expensive city in the world working at a coffee shop, or we can live somewhere cheaper and commute into San Francisco and look for a better opportunity so that someday we can
Hmm.
live there. That's the only way around it. Now, at the time, there was a lot of talk about we need to make San Francisco more affordable. Okay. So what
Hmm.
happened was rent control. That was their
Right.
solution. Let's keep rents really low. Well, it's not like that's a free solution. A lot of people that own property in San Francisco are screwed because someone's paying $1,100 for rent and they can't bump up the rents to 4,000, which is what market rate is, but the
Right.
property still cost them 1.6 million to buy. Okay, so now
Right.
you can't house hack there anymore because you buy this property that you want to house hack and someone's living in it and they're not paying fair market rent. So no matter what the government does to try to fix these problems, there's always a price someone's going to pay somewhere. Okay.
Hmm.
So my advice would be, of course, if you can work with the city of Orlando or wherever you are to come up with what's the word I'm looking for? Like low income housing options, that's great.
Hmm.
But you can't depend on it. Because the voters of
Right.
Orlando might be like, no, we don't want that. We want the houses that cost more money. And then that makes more property taxes. And now
Yeah.
we have more money coming in for the schools. And like, there's going to be different people who look at it. So there's going to be some areas around there that are not nearly as expensive as Orlando.
Hmm.
Okay. Maybe Lakeland. Lakeland's probably not as expensive right now. There's
Right.
probably some cities
Poinciana is
around.
still reasonable.
There
Yeah.
you go. If you could get your clients to buy there and commute
Hmm.
into Orlando for 5 years, there will come a point where all of the expenses of Orlando moved into these emerging markets like Lakeland, and now Lakeland's expensive and they made a whole bunch of money. And here's what's funny. When they make a whole bunch of money, they stop wanting low income housing. They're like,
Right.
yeah, I now I'm making good money. I have a good job and my house is worth a lot. I don't want low income housing, and there's different problems, right? as the agent, if you can be the solution, you can think creatively, and you can like, okay, I'm an advocate for low income housing within the city and I'm working there, but we're not going to be dependent on that. We're going to find you something on the outskirts of Orlando. Or
That's exactly what I'm doing.
that's
I'm asking now my investors to buy land, and we are developing multifamilies because it's the way we're going. It's inevitable with the development of Neo City in Central Florida. That whole demographic is going to change, and that, you know, how you talk about, you know, properties that are class A, B, C, D. It's going to change. You know, downtown Kissimmee, it's going to be a different type of C
yes.
class property.
And the reason is so many people are moving to Florida right now that the demand is outpacing the supply, which means that you now have affordability problems. You can't avoid it.
Exactly.
What's funny about San Francisco is that's the same thing that happened there, but now everyone's leaving San Francisco, and now they don't need low income options because the whole thing is starting to become lower income because no one wants to live there.
Do you think that something might prevent landlords to increase rent? Is that what's happening in California? Is there a law or something, any rule that prevents landlords from increasing the rent?
We're only allowed to increase rent by they take the consumer price index, and I believe you can add 5% to whatever that is. That's how much you can increase rent by. Okay. But when housing is becoming more and more expensive, even though rates are going down, the person buying the property has to charge more for rent to make it make sense. And they can't if there's low income options on that specific property. So then they're going to go complain. And then property taxes aren't as high as they could be because the houses aren't worth as much because of the rent control options keeping it from being worth as much. So then those people go complain. And what happens is the city just gets complaints from every single angle, and they all have their perspective and why they want what they want. And if you get caught up in that mess, it's just this turbulent like drain that sucks you into negativity. The right answer, I think, this is my opinion, is what you're doing. Like, let's fight for what we want, but let's not make our lives dependent on getting that. Let's go look for something creative outside of it. My personal opinion is if you're someone who's working at the coffee shop and you're 22 years old, that's okay. By the time you're 32 years old, if you're working at that same coffee shop, it's not the government's job to provide you low-income housing. You should have been making more money. Like, you hear this come up a lot with the McDonald's employees that are like, I can't make a fair living on a McDonald's wage. And I'm like, well, you have a job.
That's a very good reason to improve yourself.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Paula, you're out here. You became a real estate agent. You're out here working your butt off. You're looking for creative solutions. You're learning English. You're improving. You're on stuff like this. You're trying to make more money. So this isn't a problem that you run into, right? If we had more Americans that had the attitude that you have coming from Chile, we wouldn't have as many people that are complaining and saying like, well, we need low income options. It's okay when you're young to need some help like that, or when you're new somewhere to need some help, but it shouldn't stay that way, right? So that's what I call offense, teaching people how to make more money and telling them this is actually their responsibility is to make more money. You don't get a job at McDonald's and work there for 12 years and then be upset when the world isn't working out the way that you want. It should be a stepping stone to something bigger.
Correct. Yes. Agreed.
Is there anything else we can help you with? Because I like what you're doing out there.
I appreciate it. I'm learning a lot from you too, guys. I don't miss any single episode, and I'm always connected because you provide so much value.
Well, I hope we keep seeing you.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Last question. What do you think about Kyle wearing a backwards hat?
I can't think of Vanilla Ice. You were talking about it earlier. I think he's...
Wow.
I'll take that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Who was talking about it? No, it was Rob that wanted to have... Let's not talk about Rob. We're trying to aim for more subscribers than him. No,
we could talk about Rob. That's
like Rob. Rob's a great guy.
Did Rob say something about Vanilla Ice?
Yeah, he said that he wanted to have him as a host. Remember? I don't know if you remember.
Oh, I didn't know. I thought, I wanted to have Vanilla Ice on the podcast for a while.
You wanted to have Vanilla Ice. Well, you have Kyle.
That's right.
That's pretty good. I'll take that. Hello. Thanks, Paula.
All right. Thank you, Paula.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah, is people act like Rob is, Voldemort, the name that shall not be named or whatever, right?
Because this is my YouTube channel. Maybe they know that secretly, like, this is a sore spot for me because Rob's YouTube has 100,000 people or more, and I only have 10,000, even though I'm the big brother and I'm 10 years older. His YouTube, like, I'm living in the shadow of it. So maybe Paula was just trying to be sensitive about this because she knows, like, what's the thing they say about Donald Trump? Like, he has tiny hands. Maybe she thought this
I
was
have
like a
heard that.
tiny hands thing for me.
It's like a hey, my son likes David better than his own dad kind of thing, right? Well, this was fun. I'm curious, like, drop in the comments too, what you thought about tonight's format. We're definitely going to try to bring in some more guests. Maybe Rob will come in and hang out with us one night. But this is, a big part of it is we want to be able to bring up-to-date live articles and information that people are seeing out there, but then actually interpret it and look at it through the David Green lens, right? So that's super important. But let us know what you think. Let us know, again, like who you'd like to see come on, and sort of what you think about the format. And Kay Sill, do we do this every Friday? We do this every Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. This is sort of a regular thing. And Dennis, you were right. David did deliver on the value. Really good stuff and super fun. And I think you got to hit, Thomas, I think you got to hit the notification bell when you subscribe.
Can everyone just do that for me now? Can we practice subscribing and hitting the bell to see how that works? Because I think at one point subscribing automatically notified you, but now it's like two different things, right, Kyle?
Yeah, they had to hit the notification bell because at some point you're going to be subscribed to maybe 200 different people. Yeah, so you don't.
So what is subscribing to? Maybe subscribing just tells the algorithm to put this in your feed more often.
Correct. But I mean, I've got people that I've been subscribed to for years, but maybe I haven't watched their content and it drops to the bottom. So when you hit that notification bell, you're basically telling YouTube, hey, I want this to be at the top of my algorithm. I want to know when David's going to be going live. So absolutely, we're going to be doing more of that. And yeah, Paula said she got it. So we appreciate that. Glad you got the subscription. And yeah, absolutely. Having a great time. Any parting words of wisdom, David, you want to give before we end the live?
Please share this with other people because we'd like to get more people listening to it. I think I asked last week. I'll ask again. In the comments, let me know what type of stuff you'd like us to talk about so we can go get other guests. My reach is pretty big here. We can have different investors come in to talk about different things. We've had Derek Sherrill come in to talk about ADUs. We can have people that aren't necessarily real estate investors, business people, authors, like whatever type of content you guys are interested in. If you let us know, we'll try to see if we can bring in some guests. And then keep an eye on davidgreen24.com. So go check out my website. It's got some stuff there that you guys can see of ways that I can help you. And we're going to be having a new one come out. What do you think, Kyle? Like another month or two?
Yeah, I think by Thanksgiving was the goal.
We're going to try to have a new website ready by Thanksgiving. So if you check that out, that'll kind of give you something to see on like what programs I have, what meetups I'm going to have coming up, if there's any retreats that are scheduled, where we're on YouTube, where we're doing webinars, what books I'm writing, what books I'm reading, all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, that would be helpful. It's funny. Someone said they want to see Brandon on live. I actually checked with him today to see if he wanted to come in. He wasn't in the mood to do some more information, but I will keep working on that. That's definitely fun to have Brandon here.
Yeah, absolutely. I love what Dennis says, how to build a team such as David Green. You're speaking my love language there. That's like my bread and butter, man. I love doing that stuff.
That's
tax
it.
savings,
Grand architect.
Rental arbitrage. That might be something good. And yeah, Daryl says your channel will grow. I heard you mention it a couple weeks ago. All really good stuff. Awesome. Well, I am excited. I'm excited to be here back next week. Yeah, we could talk about Elon Musk on Mars, real estate, Twitter buyout, all that fun stuff. Cool. Well, I'm going to go ahead and end it right here. We could do this for days, but happy Friday to everybody. Hope you all have a great weekend. We will see you here next Friday at 6 p.m. Pacific time. 5 p.m. Pacific time. And David did another wardrobe change. Just there's only one person can do it, and it's you.
Thank you for that. I hope someday I can wear a backwards hat as smoothly as you do. It doesn't look nearly as good on me.
Yeah, but your hoodie looked good on you. As long as you don't have a wardrobe malfunction too, I think we're good.
Yeah, that's a good point. So maybe as you close it, I'll start to slowly.
All
This is
right,
how
we
you get
will
subscribers. This is how Rob
Yes.
has 100,000.
All right, see you guys.